Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about what makes positive changes last or not.
Are you interested, listener, in change lasting? In your relationship, positive change?
Get ready for a wonderful episode. And why that is because, first of all, the number one thing for relationships is that conflict actually goes emotionally repaired and resolved. That's the number one thing. You've heard us say that. But in no particular order, what we're going to cover today is one of the probably top 5, maybe top 3 things that a relationship has to have.
Yes.
Because all of the couples that we talk to, and as you're listening, this is one of the biggest pain points, is that when you get into a particular area, you have a desire, an expectation for something in your relationship, and you do not see positive, progressive change, it deflates you. And it's one of the biggest barriers to couples actually making progress is we've had this conversation before. This is an area we've tried to focus on. And when you do not see that positive change, it is a huge barrier to the connection for a couple and your belief that anything will change. I know that seems obvious, but it's a huge barrier when you think we've been down this road and I don't think something is actually going to change here.
Well, and I also want to add to, that's one way of it, like not experiencing that big change. However, I think what a lot of people experience is there is some positive change and it lasts for a week, a month, a couple months, and then you're boom, right back to old ways. Maybe you read a book, maybe you read our book, The Argument Hangover. Maybe you implemented something from one of our podcast episodes, or you've attended our couples workshop. Whatever it is, you do that, you experience positive change. So you're like, yay, okay, positive change. Then a week later, a month later, you feel as though it's disappeared. Where did it go? Why didn't the positive change last? Or this could even be positive change within yourself. We've been talking to people a lot lately about things they're wanting to work on within themselves. And they're like, I want to be the best. I want to work on this in me. And they can feel frustrated with themselves when they don't have that positive change last in themselves after a little while. So the principle we're going into today is a hugely important thing for you to understand about your brain and what makes this change last or not.
And if you're following along with us from the last episode, we did talk about how we were reading Ed Mylett's book, The Power of One More. If you're along with us, send us a message, actually. I know you're on chapter 4. I just finished chapter 2 because I just got back from Austin. Have to do another topic on my takeaways from that crypto conference. But I got back today and dove into chapter 2, where he puts this in a context, which we're going to go into, about the reticular activating system and what he calls this as your own internal matrix, like the movie. So it was a good analogy, and it fired me up to really talk about this today as you're listening here and really go into what has positive change actually happen and last.
Yes.
And it is primarily, it's going to sound simple at first, but we're going to go deeper. It is your belief about yourself, about the situation, or about your partner. So that's 3 interesting things to really end up looking at. Because if you want a change to happen, that is a result. And it's easier to see in other aspects of your life, or maybe something slightly more tangible or measurable like your finances.
Or health.
Exactly. That's a great example. And in your relationship, it can be a little bit more vague, primarily because it's an experience that you're looking for. So when we say result, in a relationship, it's largely a different experience, a change in your experience. I want to be more understood. I want to feel more supported. I want to feel as if my voice is heard, I'm accepted, there isn't any judgment. So it really is more loved, right? So it's more about the experience from the result side. And let you riff here. You really have to start to get here today that your belief is really not something that you're consciously having thoughts of day to day.
Yeah.
And this is the most trickiest thing because, and I'm going to give some great examples of myself, honestly. You can think to yourself positively. Oh, I'm going to think positively about the outcome that I want in a relationship here.
Mm-hmm.
I can have some top of mind or my conscious thoughts, but you have to be honest, your real results that do come from the actions you take, but those actions that you take and the attitude that you have comes from the subconscious actual beliefs you have, and these are not things that you're typically quote unquote thinking of.
Yes.
So you can think, oh, I'm going to make change.
Mm-hmm.
You could think to yourself whatever you need to think about your partner or the situation, but it's deeper than that. It's not just your top of mind thoughts that you have. The belief system is like the part of the identity of yourself. It is your belief, the reality in which you see this situation and what you actually believe underlying about your partner, not just some of the 10%-ish thoughts that you have top of mind.
Get this. Your reality is not actually reality for everyone. Your reality is actually shaped completely by your belief systems. I need you to get that. Your reality is constructed subconsciously, like Aaron said, because of all of your beliefs. So you can have beliefs about marriage, and then you are going to have your brain go to work to either see that that's happening or not. You have certain beliefs about yourself. I know we're going to give some relationship examples here in a minute, but one that is measurable, like you said, Aaron, health. A ton of people at the beginning of the year, what do? They set health goals. And a lot of people, it's weight. I'm not saying weight is the best measure of health, but that's what a lot of people do. I'm going to drop 20 pounds. And so they go to the gym for 2 weeks. They're eating well for 2 weeks. And why is it that it doesn't stick? It's because of this. Their beliefs are not actually aligned with them thinking they can be healthy. A lot of people, their beliefs are, I'm never going to be healthy. I am never going to feel good in my body. Working out is too hard. It's not manageable. But again, they can be motivated for a second. So your reality is shaped by your beliefs.
That's a great start. Let's do a relationship example because I don't want you, the listener, to get lost because you've probably heard that before about the health. And I don't want you to gloss over the principle because your mind then thinks to itself, oh yeah, I heard that one before. So let's start to get into a relationship specific example. Again, the tricky thing is you do not consciously think to yourself day to day about what your belief is about the situation, yourself, or your partner. Mm-hmm. And so that being the case, it is reality to you. It is that way. Mm-hmm. So do you have an example for a relationship?
Yeah, a couple. One from me and one that we hear. So from me, my belief used to be that men are not trustworthy. And that was reality for me. It didn't live like a belief. It lived like, no, that's true. And now I'm not going to go into all the reasons why. We've covered on that different episodes, but that's my belief. Now, because of how our brain is designed, and we're going to explain what the reticular activating system is in a minute, my brain went to work to find evidence for why that is true. In every relationship, that's what it was primed for. So I'm constantly like, who are they texting? Oh, they seem to be too friendly talking to that person at this birthday party. Oh, are their eyes looking at someone else? Constantly, my brain was looking for proof that my belief is true. Then I took action correlated with that. Asking questions, being insecure, and like just this anxious energy towards my partner, asking, who are you texting? Hey, did you think that person was attractive? Even subconsciously starting fights about things that weren't always really happening, right? It was, in a way, I was creating it.
So for you, what did you believe about your partners?
That they weren't trustworthy.
And I'm saying this in this kind of depth because my partner is not trustworthy does not seem to you in those moments like an option. It's not just a thought you're having. That's actually true. Like, that's reality. It doesn't seem
Exactly.
like, oh, I just had a thought about my partner being trustworthy. Do I think that's true or not?
Mm-hmm.
You weren't actively thinking about whether you chose it or not. That was the way it was.
Yes.
Your partner was not trustworthy.
Exactly. Another example is, and this is something we hear from people a lot, is feeling their belief is that things are not fair in the relationship, especially around like household responsibilities, children. And their belief is, and it feels so true to them, that it is not fair and their partner is not doing as much as them. So because that is what their brain believes, their brain is now filtering information and looking for proof that that's true. Your brain isn't then like, oh, but let me look for the benefit of the doubt. That could be a conscious choice you make, but your brain, because that's your belief, is looking for proof that that is true, that it isn't fair, that they aren't doing as much.
So this goes to the book where Ed is talking about the reticular activating system. He uses the acronym RAS. And the easy analogy is that only when you go to buy a particular car and now it's in your sort of consciousness, it's active in your awareness, right? When you drive home, you're like, oh, there's one. But that's the only one I've ever really seen. And over the next week, you see 50 of them. And it wasn't just that magically 50 are now on the road and they all bought on the same day as you. They were always there. But it's when you brought that into your particular consciousness. And in this case, what's happening is that your underlying subconscious belief is, in effect, projecting that image into your mind as if the cars around you are what you're now looking for, right? And so it's not necessarily that it's a fact. It's just that your belief, again, is projecting that for you to look around and to find that. So to your point, when your belief is, my partner is not trustworthy, they do not keep their word, they do not follow through. Now, there probably is a number of places that your partner is following through and doing what they said they were going to do. But if that's your belief, then that gets projected up to your conscious mind and in your awareness, and you only see the places in which they're not keeping their word to what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
And then because that's the only thing you're actually noticing, then that becomes, my partner isn't trustworthy. And then what is it that you bring up to them?
Like, I can't count on you. You're not doing this. You're not doing that.
And here's a good example. Just yesterday, you said you're going to do this, but you didn't. But you don't have the expanded awareness. Maybe they did 4, 5, 6 other things that they actually said they were going to do, and you focus on the one thing. Why? Because your actual belief system, your reticular activating system, is creating the reality, or as you like to say, the filter in which you are experiencing reality.
Yeah, I want to elaborate on the filter, and I want to explain. So the reticular activating system, this is the part of our brain. It's responsible for several things, one of which being keeping us awake and conscious. Another is our fight or flight response, so kind of our survival mechanism. But really what it is it's perceiving the world, and it is filtering information. Because if we didn't have this filter, we would be overwhelmed with a number of sensory input. Like even the room or where you are, maybe you're in your car right now. If you didn't have your reticular activating system, you would pass out from the amount of information and stimuli coming towards you. But your RIS is filtering, what are the things I don't need to be aware of right now? What's important to me? What's not important? And because that filter is helpful in survival, that's a good thing. However, it's not always in our favor when it's filtering to beliefs that we don't want to have, right? Like you could think and I know you're going to cover a financial example because that's relevant to us right now, but if you have these certain aspirations for the kind of relationship that you want, but your RAS is programmed to look for the opposite of what you consciously want to choose, because again, you have these underlying disempowering beliefs. Like maybe you believe marriages actually don't last. Maybe you believe actually, oh, you know what? The other shoe is going to drop someday. Something that's disempowering, whether it's your relationship, maybe it's about finances, maybe it's about your health, that will be what your brain defaults back to. And that's why the change doesn't feel as though it lasts. Because after a little while of consciously focusing on quote unquote the positive or what you do want, if you're not vigilant and changing your belief, your brain will just go right back to filtering for the default belief you have. That's your RAS.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I'll give one example here for my life / our life personally. And I'm going to give this example, and I have not found the answer, if you will, right? So I'm not even sharing this from the standpoint of, oh, I found this belief and then I have victory over it, right? I'm actually in it now. And I want to share it because I think it could be very similar for a lot of people out there. And from a financial perspective, Ed did a podcast on this. A friend of ours, Chris Harder, did another podcast on your financial thermostat, or your identity being this thermostat around, a business or how much money you can earn. And it really is sort of that thermostat that if you have growth or progress, it's only going to last as long as it equates to your identity, or as we're talking about here, your belief system. And if you don't have a belief system that matches the trajectory of progress, you will bring your results back down to what you're familiar with. Yeah. And what you're familiar with is your belief system. And who knows how long a certain belief has been held in there. So I'm going to give you a financial sort of business one for myself. You could look there, but this is a relationship podcast, so we want you to look a place, and we're going to give you a place in your relationship, and we're going to give you a particular action. So I'm going to try to do this as short as I can. But in our life, we're obviously on this path. We're on this mission to be able to have each one of us in a relationship be the best person we can be the best partner we can be, and now bring those together and be the best parents you can be. And our mission is big. It's to reach millions of people from the podcast, from our courses, from our coaching. And because we are really heavily weighted in contribution in our life, as well as, to be honest, significance, that's a big driver for us. And we really do desire and are striving to be the sought after relationship coaches for the skills around these topics: being the best person, being the best partner, and being the best parent. So that's a big thing, right? And I've been confronted just with this conversation from Ed's book, from Chris's podcast, and it being brought to my awareness that I look back to when I was in high school, and it just so happens to turn out I fell into a great group of friends, and it just so happened that all of their families were really wealthy. And it was great for me in that time period, because it's like we got to like drive all these great cars. I always spent time at their houses. They lived in mansions in Ohio, if you will, right? And it was so fun to be a part of that world. And when I get honest about it, my real belief system around influence and wealth primarily is that I will never be a match to them. Because that's really what I said in high school. Like, oh, it's so, not consciously, I want to say that. My belief was, wow, it's really nice I get to live in this world because my friends and my family and their families are wealthy and they have success in a way. And it's good for me to be a part of this because I'm not meant for that myself.
Because you didn't have that. So it was like a big contrast to what you saw they had.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my family didn't have it, but, for whatever reason, I created a belief that I would never be equal to them.
Yeah.
And this is nothing against any of them. Like they were awesome and we were all like equal, if you will, but I created that belief system and I see that it's pretty active. It's kind of active today.
Yeah.
And I fully believe that the belief system I have around this still, that I haven't truly raised my thermostat, my identity in this, is keeping us wherever we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because it's for you in your life and your relationship, it's not a comparison to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you are, you know, both Ed and our friend Chris Harder talk about this. You could be at a $10 million financial and you want to get to 100. Well, you got to look at the belief. And if your belief doesn't match to the 100, you're not going to get there. And you're always going to reset yourself back to the belief that you do have. So it doesn't matter as far as accomplishments. We want you to look for yourself, and primarily in your relationship here, wherever you're wanting to go as far as a result and experience, you have to go back and look, what is my belief system around this that's keeping me and keeping us from actually getting where we want to go.
Yeah, I really love that example and that story. And before we give you like a specific kind of exercise and important way of implementing this, 2 important things I want to say. Number 1, you got to ask yourself, what is your filter for your partner now? What is your brain looking for right now with your partner? And we're talking about your partner, but again, you could journal about this in other areas of your life, but like, what's your brain programmed to filter for now because of your belief systems? Also regarding filter, it is so important. You guys hear us talk about communication a lot. Communication is a big area that people are wanting to work on. You have a certain filter for the way in which you're listening to your partner. You don't just hear everything that they say or even just hear like the words they're saying for the words they're saying. You have a certain filter. Man, they're always complaining. Oh, man, here we go again. They never listen to me. Like you have some certain way you're filtering, and that's important for you to look at. And we know that for many of you, again, communication is a big area you're wanting to work on. So if, in case you didn't know, you can actually, whether your partner's wanting to do this or not, solo, of course, it's great if you can do it together, but even solo, you can go through our communication mastery program. Our communication mastery bundle gives you all of these exercises, worksheets, modules, videos, audios to upgrade your communication skills and to have you change the way in which you see yourself as a communicator, see your partner as a communicator, and it gets very tangible in there. So you can actually go to onlinecouplesworkshops.com/communication bundle. You got to do the / communication bundle. The link will also be in the show notes, and get that for a discounted price. That will be a game changer for you. So make sure you read it. We're seeing signups every day for that program. And that's a great way for you to also learn about your filter and within your partnership as well.
I do have an example actually, since you were sharing that. And, you know, we are just committed to being as authentic as possible. So even last night when I actually hadn't talked this all the way through with you, so this is going to be the first time you're hearing it.
All right.
You all ready?
I'm ready.
So when I got back from Austin, I kind of just dove right into like what needed to happen. Poor Ellie, she has a cone on. She has an ulcer in her eye, so she has one of those cones that keeps her from scratching it. And man, she stunk. She did not.
Ellie's our dog, by the way, not our daughter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Our daughter is Sky, and Ellie is a dog. For those that didn't know, and we haven't given her a bath in a while, and you know that's on us.
Oh man.
I know.
A little longer than normal, just a little bit. I mean, you guys, we take care of her, just so you know.
And we've got other things going, like a human child to take care of. So coming back, I'm like, wow, Ellie stinks. So it's like I got back home and just kind of talk with you a little bit on the drive from the airport to our house. But I kind of dove into like helping clean and washing Ellie the dog, putting some things away. And so I did jump into what I felt needed to get done to support you. And then towards the end of the night, I just kind of fell into asking questions that were like logical
kind of business oriented. Hey, what's the update with this? What's this? What's this?
So we were sitting there, and then you said to me, it sounds like your business as usual. And this is the part I really want the listeners to get. It's not like I was conscious of my belief in how I was going to interpret what you were saying. When you said that, I didn't think about it immediately, without thinking about it, in my body. And I only got this in reflecting on it later. But I felt in that moment that what you were saying to me is, oh, and just notice how the brain does this. That even though you said that, oh, it seems like your business as usual, literally how my body received it was, oh, you are saying that I went out for 4 days to Austin and went to this conference where I was learning and I was doing something that I was really interested in and passionate about, and you came back and nothing changed.
Interesting.
And
that's so different than what I was saying too. So that's so interesting that your brain filtered to hear that.
And I wanted to share that because, like, I'm not consciously choosing that thought. And there's not even a time for me to question whether I think that's real or not. In that second, my filter, my RAS, my identity, my belief was that you were saying, oh, great, you got those 4 days to explore, be on your own, come back with positivity, come back changed, come back fired up, and nothing is different.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's so different than where I was coming from, right? So that's such a good example. And that's even like kind of close to how people will, when they go through a rough patch with their partner, say things like, oh, here we go again. When the partner starts to bring something up, it's because you're filtering for where you're not doing good enough, where there's always another thing. And so then you can be resistant to actually talking about it because you're just like, here we go again. So I think we've given some great examples. Now, the action for you to not just hear this and do nothing about it is write down, or at a minimum, think through, like spend some conscious time thinking through this. What is the particular area in the relationship you would like to experience a positive result? Could be your communication, could be your intimacy, it could be your finances, right? All right, so what's the area? Then in that area, what do you have in this area right now? Right? What is the current result that's happening? Your experience, what it is. Then your next thing is, what must your belief be if that's what you have right now?
And that is the key. I mean, ideally, you give yourself some time after this podcast to actually write this down, because if you just think about this now, listening to this, you're only going to access the level of conscious thought, which is somewhat biased in your favor. But if you really want to make a positive change last, and that's really where we get the entire theme, the title of this podcast, is you have to go deeper than the level of your conscious thought stream, because you're going to say to yourself, oh, well, what I believe is we're making progress, or what I believe is things are going fine.
Or I appreciate my partner.
They're doing their best, and I love my partner, and they're so supportive. And this is the challenge to you. That is not true if you're wanting a different result than what you have now. You have to really challenge yourself. Set aside what it is that you're desiring, the future result. Whatever you do have in this moment, in your communication, in your finances, in your intimacy, in your parenting, in your growth together, you have to say and be honest, that right now is a function of the belief that I've had up until this moment. So if it's not something that you want, if it's not the place you want to be in, then it is equally correlated to the actual belief you have, not the positive thoughts you can try to create in this moment.
Yes.
And this is the only way you actually create real lasting change. If you don't get to this level, you do not create real change. You listen to this podcast and you get motivated and you take one slightly different action, but your RAS, your identity, your thermostat will bring you back down. That's why you read a book. That's why you go to a workshop. That's why you listen to a podcast and get motivated. And if you don't see real lasting change, it means you did not get to the actual belief.
Boom. Okay, I'm fired up now. Beliefs, that's it. And again, you can also ask yourself, like, what's the filter? That's a great way of accessing it too. So this is big, you guys. Like Aaron said, this is one of the top things for you to unpack, focus on for your partnership, for your life, to understand about yourself. And I do want to just reiterate one more thing as we close out. You have to understand you have beliefs about yourself too. You have your beliefs about situations, like marriage is a quote unquote situation. You have beliefs about yourself. Maybe some of your beliefs that are impacting your relationship are, I'm really not good enough, or someone's just going to leave me, right? You do have a certain way you perceive yourself as well, and you have beliefs about your partner. So you got to unpack it all. We hope that this is like an aha for you. Send us a note, share it on Instagram stories, tag us, like this needs to be heard and known out there. And if you've never written a review for our podcast, my belief is 10 of you would write one from this episode. Speaking of beliefs. So if you can write a review, that's a great way to just kind of give back for the benefit that you receive from this. And then also make sure you work on your communication skills by going and looking at the Communication Mastery Bundle. That again is onlinecouplesworkshops.com/communication bundle. We love you all. We can't wait to talk to you on